Silence falls before the storm, and this time it feels heavier than ever. The story everyone thinks they know is no longer moving toward hope, but toward a cost that cannot be avoided. Season 6 begins not with miracles or crowds, but with the weight of days that are running out. Every breath feels measured. Every look feels final. What comes next is not about surprise, but about endurance. The last days have begun, and there is no turning back. Season 6, Episode 1, opens with a feeling that something has changed in the air. Nothing is said out loud, yet everything feels different. Jesus carries himself with a quiet resolve that is impossible to ignore. There is no fear in him, but there is awareness. He knows what lies ahead, and that knowledge shapes every word he speaks and every step he takes. His presence feels calmer, but also heavier, as if he is already carrying the pain that has not yet arrived. The episode does not rush to explain this shift. It allows the audience to feel it, to sense that time itself is tightening around him. The people around Jesus feel the change too, even if they cannot name it. The disciples sense that something is slipping out of their control. Conversations feel strained, smiles come slower. Faith is still there, but it is being tested in ways they have never faced before. They follow Jesus expecting victory, clarity, and purpose. Now they are walking into uncertainty. The episode lets that tension breathe. It shows belief colliding with fear, loyalty, battling self-preservation, and love struggling to understand what sacrifice truly means. Jesus speaks with tenderness, but there is urgency beneath his calm. His words feel deliberate, as if each one matters more than the last. He does not explain everything. He does not comfort them with easy promises. Instead, he invites them to stay present, to remain faithful even when understanding fails them. This quiet approach makes everything more unsettling. There is no dramatic warning, only the slow realization that these moments are precious because they will not last. At the same time, pressure is building beyond the group. Authority figures are watching more closely. Whispers grow louder. Fear spreads through the city, not because of what Jesus has done wrong, but because of what he represents. The episode shows how truth can become dangerous when it threatens control. Power begins to move in the shadows, driven not by justice, but by anxiety and pride. No one wants to be responsible for what's coming, yet everyone plays a part in pushing it forward. What makes this opening episode so powerful is its restraint. It does not rely on spectacle. It relies on tension. The danger feels real because it feels human. People hesitate. Decisions are delayed. Silence replaces certainty. Jesus stands at the center of it all, not fighting the direction of events, but allowing them to unfold. That choice is unsettling. It challenges the audience to question strength, courage, and what it truly means to stand firm. By the end of this section, the episode makes one thing clear. Season 6 is not about avoiding pain. It is about walking straight into it with open eyes. The journey ahead will not be easy for the characters or the audience. Hope still exists, but it is now wrapped in suffering, patience, and trust. Episode 1 does not explode into chaos. It tightens the knot. It prepares us for a story where love does not escape the darkness, but chooses to remain inside it. As the episode moves forward, the tension no longer stays quiet. It begins to press in from all sides. Jesus continues to teach, but his words now feel heavier, layered with meaning that unsettles those listening. Some hear comfort in his voice. Others hear danger. The same truth that once brought healing now exposes fear and resistance. Crowds still gather, but they are no longer united. Curiosity mixes with suspicion. Admiration competes with doubt. The episode shows how quickly public opinion can shift when uncertainty takes hold. The disciples struggle the most. They sense that the ground beneath them is no longer stable. Peter tries to stay strong, speaking with confidence, but his certainty feels forced. There is fear behind his eyes that he does not want to face. John watches more closely than he speaks, trying to understand what Jesus is preparing them for. Judas grows distant, restless, torn between belief and frustration. He expected change to come with power and recognition, not silence and surrender. The episode does not judge him yet. It simply lets his inner conflict simmer. Jesus spends time with them, but those moments feel fragile. Every shared meal, every quiet exchange feels like it could be the last. He looks at them with deep love, knowing they will soon be tested beyond what they believe they can handle. He does not accuse, he does not demand. Instead, he invites honesty. That invitation is uncomfortable. It forces them to confront their own limits, their fear of loss, and their desire to protect themselves. Outside their circle, resistance is hardening. Religious leaders feel their authority slipping. They are not portrayed as monsters, but as people driven by fear of losing control. Truth threatens their position, and that makes it dangerous. Conversations grow sharper. Accusations form quietly, passed from one voice to another until they feel justified. The episode captures how easily fear disguises itself as righteousness. Decisions are made not to protect people, but to protect systems. Meanwhile, the city itself feels tense. There is an undercurrent of unease in every interaction. People sense that something significant is about to happen, even if they cannot explain why. The episode uses this atmosphere to build suspense without relying on action. The danger is not yet visible, but it is close enough to feel. It hangs in the air, waiting for the right moment to strike. Jesus remains calm through it all. That calm is unsettling to those around him. He does not try to escape what is forming. He does not change his message to make it safer. His strength lies in acceptance, not resistance. This challenges everyone watching him. It forces the audience to confront a difficult truth. Courage does not always look like fighting back. Sometimes it looks like standing still when the world demands you run. As this section comes to a close, the episode makes it clear that faith is no longer theoretical. It is being tested by pressure, fear, and the promise of loss. The lines are being drawn, even if no one openly admits it yet. Choices are forming quietly in hearts and minds. Episode 1 is no longer just setting the stage. It is tightening the grip, pulling every character closer to a moment that will change everything. By this point in the episode, the sense of danger is no longer subtle. It has shape. It has direction. What once felt like distant tension now feels personal and unavoidable. Jesus is no longer just being watched. He is being weighed, measured, and quietly judged. The questions around him are no longer about truth, but about risk. Every word he speaks seems to push unseen forces into motion. The world around him is beginning to close in, and the episode allows that pressure to build slowly, without release. The disciples feel it deeply. Their confidence continues to erode as they realize how little control they actually have. They had imagined standing beside Jesus when his kingdom was revealed, believing they would be part of something powerful and victorious. Instead, they find themselves surrounded by uncertainty and growing hostility. Their faith is still real, but it is now tangled with fear. They begin to understand that following Jesus may cost them far more than they expected, and that realization is terrifying. Jesus notices their struggle, but he does not stop what is coming. His compassion remains, yet his path does not change. He speaks with clarity, even when that clarity makes people uncomfortable. His presence exposes hearts, and not everyone likes what they see. Some turn away quietly, others grow angry. The episode shows how truth can divide, not because it is cruel, but because it refuses to bend. That refusal becomes dangerous in a world built on compromise. Meanwhile, those in power grow more restless. Their conversations become sharper, more urgent. The fear of unrest pushes them toward decisions they know are wrong but feel necessary. The episode makes it clear that injustice rarely arrives suddenly. It forms slowly, through rationalizations and small acts of avoidance. Responsibility is passed from one person to another until no one feels fully accountable. That slow unraveling of morality is one of the most unsettling elements of this section. The city itself feels heavier. Ordinary people sense the tension and respond in different ways. Some keep their distance, afraid of being associated with Jesus. Others watch closely, torn between admiration and fear. The episode captures how quickly support can fade when safety is threatened. Loyalty becomes conditional. Courage becomes rare. The crowd begins to shift, not because they suddenly believe something different, but because fear is louder than conviction. Jesus continues forward, fully aware of the danger. His calm is no longer comforting. It is unsettling. He does not resist what is happening, and that makes everyone around him uneasy. His silence in the face of rising hostility speaks louder than protest ever could. It forces others to confront their own fear. The question is no longer whether he is right or wrong. The question becomes who is willing to stand with him when it becomes dangerous to do so. The disciples begin to fracture emotionally. Some cling tighter to Jesus, desperate for reassurance. Others pull inward, overwhelmed by the weight of what lies ahead. Judas, in particular, grows more isolated. His frustration deepens as the path he imagined slips further away. The episode does not excuse his thoughts, but it allows the audience to understand his turmoil. Disappointment, fear, and unmet expectations begin to twist into something darker. The seeds of betrayal are not planted in hatred, but in confusion and disillusionment. As this section reaches its end, the tone grows colder. There is no explosion of violence yet, but the direction is clear. The world is no longer neutral. It is choosing sides. And Jesus, standing at the center of it all, does not try to stop that choice from happening. Episode 1 makes it painfully clear that the story has crossed a line. What comes next will not be gentle. The final days are not approaching quietly anymore. They are approaching with intention. As the episode moves deeper, the emotional weight becomes harder to carry. What once felt like approaching danger now feels like an unavoidable reality. Jesus speaks less, but when he does, his words land with greater force. There is no attempt to ease the tension, no effort to reassure through comfort. Instead, there is honesty, a truth that does not protect feelings, but prepares hearts. He makes it clear that following him will demand more than belief. It will demand endurance, humility, and the willingness to lose everything. The disciples struggle to accept this. Their faith is real, but their understanding is incomplete. They still hope for a different outcome, a sudden turn that will make sense of all this fear. When Jesus speaks about suffering, about sacrifice, about things that must happen, it creates distance between them and the future they imagined. They want to argue, to resist, to deny it, but they cannot. His certainty is unshakable, and that makes their fear even stronger. This section quietly reveals how alone Jesus truly is becoming. Even when surrounded by people, there is a growing separation. No one fully understands the path he is walking. No one can share the burden he carries. The episode allows this loneliness to sit without commentary. It does not dramatize it. It simply shows it. The audience feels it in the pauses, in the looks that linger too long, in the conversations that end without resolution. Outside the group, the pressure reaches a new level. Plans are no longer theoretical. They are forming. Decisions are being made behind closed doors. The tone shifts from debate to action. Fear now drives urgency. Those in power convince themselves that stopping Jesus is not just necessary, but justified. The episode shows how easily moral lines blur when people are afraid of losing control. No one believes they are doing evil. They believe they are preventing chaos. The disciples sense this shift, even if they don't fully understand it. Their fear begins to change shape. It is no longer abstract. It is specific. They worry about arrest, punishment, loss. Some begin to question whether staying close to Jesus is worth the danger. Others cling harder, believing loyalty will somehow protect them. The episode does not rush these reactions. It treats them with honesty, showing how fear fractures people differently. Judas's conflict intensifies here. His disappointment turns sharper, more focused. He feels trapped between what he hoped Jesus would be and what Jesus is choosing to be. The silence, the surrender, the refusal to act with power feels like failure to him. This section makes it clear that betrayal is not born in a single moment. It grows slowly, fed by unmet expectations and the belief that something must be done to force change. Jesus, aware of all this, does not intervene. His stillness becomes the most powerful presence in the episode. He does not try to convince anyone to stay. He does not demand loyalty. He allows people the freedom to choose, even when that freedom leads them away from him. That choice makes his path more painful, but also more honest. Love in this story is never forced. As this section ends, the episode makes one truth unavoidable. The cost of this journey is no longer hidden. Everyone can feel it now. Faith is no longer safe. Following Jesus is no longer inspiring in a comfortable way. It is dangerous. And with that realization, episode 1 prepares the audience for what comes next, not with shock, but with dread. The final steps toward betrayal and arrest are no longer distant. They are close enough to touch. The final movement of episode 1 carries a weight that refuses to lift. There is no release, no relief, only the slow understanding that everything has changed. The world around Jesus is no longer simply tense. It is set. Decisions have been made, lines have been crossed. What remains is the waiting. And waiting in this moment feels heavier than action. The episode leans into that stillness, allowing the silence to speak louder than any confrontation. Jesus moves with quiet purpose. There is no hesitation in him, only resolve. He knows what is coming, and he does not turn away from it. His strength is not displayed through force or escape, but through acceptance. This choice unsettles everyone around him. It challenges their understanding of power, leadership, and victory. The episode makes it clear that what is unfolding cannot be stopped, not because no one cares, but because fear has already taken control. The disciples feel the weight of this realization differently. Some cling to hope, believing that something will still change at the last moment. Others begin to pull back emotionally, preparing themselves for loss they cannot yet face. Their love for Jesus is real, but their fear is just as real. This tension defines their final moments together in this episode. Nothing dramatic happens, yet everything feels final. Conversations feel unfinished. Looks linger longer than they should. The audience can feel the separation forming, even before it happens. Judas stands at the edge of this story, torn and restless. His inner conflict reaches a breaking point. He is no longer just disappointed, he feels powerless, ignored, and trapped between loyalty and fear. The episode does not portray his decision as sudden or simple. It shows the slow collapse of his hope, the way fear and frustration twist into justification. By the end of this section, it is clear that betrayal is no longer a possibility. It is a direction. Outside the circle of followers, the machinery of injustice is fully in motion. Authority figures prepare to act, convinced they are protecting order. The episode makes no attempt to soften this truth. Fear has replaced wisdom. Convenience has replaced justice. And once that shift happens, there is no turning back. The audience is forced to confront how easily ordinary people become part of something terrible by choosing safety over truth. Jesus remains the calm center in the middle of this collapse. His silence is not surrender in weakness, but obedience in love. He does not fight to change the outcome. He chooses to walk forward, knowing the cost. This choice gives the episode its emotional weight. It reframes suffering not as failure, but as purpose. Love does not escape pain here, it walks directly into it. As episode 1 comes to an end, there is no cliffhanger in the traditional sense. There is no shock. There is only certainty. The sense that what comes next cannot be undone. The story has reached its point of no return. The audience is left not with excitement, but with heaviness, with anticipation mixed with grief. Season 6 does not begin by promising comfort. It begins by asking the viewer to stay, to witness, and to endure. The final moments sit in silence, daring the audience to reflect. This is no longer just a story unfolding on screen. It is a journey that will demand attention, patience, and emotional honesty. Episode 1 closes not by resolving tension, but by sealing it. The last days have begun, and once they are in motion, there is no looking away.